to continue, but allow me to go back to the discussion that we had way back last week. In fact, I was about to show the same picture or the same illustration I did, but I do found this presentation in the internet, so might just use this one. So what we are going to deal with the first lesson is all about the cell theory, how the cell theory was then developed. It's a matter of discoveries from several people, which we're going to deal in the course of our discussion today. Okay, so we have here something that you can look at as a simple timeline of what really happened, how the cell theory started, and who started that said concept of the cell theory. So we have first the Romans discovered the glass, and from that glass comes the microscope, of course. So the lenses that were made by Zacharias Janssen and the first compound microscope by Leeuwenhoek was then formulated because of the discovery of the glass by the Romans. Of course, after that comes the first compound microscope by Leeuwenhoek, which in some language pronounced as Leeuwenhoek. I don't know about this one. And then, of course, the definition of theory, set of principles developed over time. And with these principles comes a certain proof or prueba for it to be accepted as a theory. Okay, so we have here the cell theory. Remember last week, Thursday was it, we defined three major tenets of the cell theory. The first one was all organisms are made of cells. And then all existing cells are produced by other living cells. And then we have here, the cell is the basic unit of life. So it's like, I think the third one was the first that we mentioned in a previous discussion. It is also found in your modules, the three postulates, postulate 1, postulate 2, and postulate 3. Was it postulate in your modules? Okay, and then we have here the 5 contributors to the cell theory. I was reminded that the name of the person who quote the Omnis Cellulae Cellulae or Omnis Cellula Cellula was Robert Remak, spelled R-E-M-A-K. Nice, Bisaya spelling, Remak. Okay, but again, who was credited for the third tenet was Rudolf Virchow, but it's actually a collaboration, I believe, of Robert Remak and Rudolf Virchow. So we have here Robert Hooke, Anton van Leeuwenhoek, Matthias Leiden, Theodor Schwann, and Rudolf Virchow. Each of these set of people, we are going to talk about their life, their contribution to the cell theory as we progress with our discussion. Okay, so we have here evidences as well and their experiments and some of their machineries that they did use in their experiment, like the microscopes and pictures of their specimens. Okay, so allow me to have this question first. No, the cell theory is composed of how many parts? How many parts was the cell theory was composed of? If we bring back the tenets, the cell theory was composed of 3 parts. No. Then this question: how many contributors have compiled today's cell theory? 5 or 6? Okay, so the 6th person there could go with Robert Remak. However, if you watch the module, you happen to read there different names as well. Not only Robert Remak, but you also have there Marcello Malpighi, Nehemiah Gru. You also have the first to invent the microscope. We have Zacharias Janssen, and then the father of pasteurization there. You also have Louis Pasteur. who used a good bacteria in his experiment. So please do further readings. But if we go back to the cell theory itself, we have these 5 major contributors of the said cell theory. Okay, so for these 5 people, I will share a little video, and from there we get to start from Robert Hooke down to Rudolf Virchow's contribution to the cell theory. So let me play this for a while.
Sir, is there an audio?
Yes, right?
Is there an audio? We can't hear the audio, I think.
You
Or
can't
is
hear
it
the
just me?
audio. Please double check those who are also having problems with the audio. Um, anyone who would like to comment? Anyone who also experienced problems with the audio as well? But how will I? That's the audio is fine with me here. How do I how do I resolve this one? Yes, Chang.
Mute yourself kay murag madunggan na mo ang likod.
So I will mute myself.
Unmute yourself tapos hinera madunggan.
Sige daw, sige daw. So let's try again. Or let me continue. If this won't work, then we'll skip this video, okay? Uh-huh.
No, sir.
Wala pa rin, sir.
I'll just share the link of this short video so that you can just simply watch this on your own at your own convenience, okay? But look at the people involved in the cell theory. It's not only 5, but there are 7 or like 8 in this video. You have here Johannes Evangelista Porkinji or Porkinji, who has also some contributions to the cell theory. No? Purkinje, by the way, discovered the protoplasm of the cell, okay? Or the cytoplasm, shall we say, the liquid part of the cell. Again, Johannes Evangelista Purkinje is the complete name. I will type it later. Or you can just search that Purkinje. JEP. JEP is the acronym of his complete name. Then we have Robert Brown. Robert Brown discovered the nucleus of the cell. Okay? Again, Robert Brown discovered the nucleus of the cell. Robert Hooke discovered the cell. Robert Brown discovered the nucleus of the cell. Purkinje discovered the protoplasm of the cell. We have here Marcello Malfigi discovered the organelles of a plant cell, whereas Leeuwenhoek discovered the organelles of an animal cell. He called that animalcules. But Marcello Malfigi focuses on plant cell, much like the same with Schleiden and Schwann. Schleiden is a botanist who said that plants came from cells, and Schwann is a zoologist who said that animals came from cell. And then, you know very well, Rudolf Virchow he proposed the third tenet of the cell theory. He said, omnis cellula e cellula, which means all cells comes from pre-existing cells, which I think it's found in your module, right? So I'll just proceed with the next slide and not focus on this one. Any question regarding the people here? None. Okay, so let's proceed with the next slide. Oy. Okay, let's start with Robert Hooke. So Robert Hooke is actually there's an intriguing story behind Robert Hooke. If you notice, this is not a picture of him, rather it's just a simple painting of the said person. It was believed that all paintings and pictures of Robert Hooke was burned by Isaac Newton. No? But that's another story that we need to deal in the next lessons to come. But this is just an illustration through a painting by Robert Hooke. In the book of Robert Hooke, the Micrographia, there was no existing picture of him. No, perhaps a recall of this face was done by a painter to whom Robert Hooke was acquainted. He is an English scientist who used the compound microscope to observe a cork. It's a bark of a tree. It's a dead cell in particular. That's why Robert Hooke only saw squares in his microscope. No? And these hollow compartments was giving him the background of how the monks in a certain monastery, or the rooms of the monks in a certain monastery looks like. And he coined the term cell for the rooms in that said monastery was called cells. It's just by the shape itself that he was able to coin the name cell. Okay, so we have here the date to when he discovered the cell. It's on 1665, and from that time comes the formulation of the cell theory. So he ignited the world of, or the concept of the cell theory. Then comes the next person, or rather, I'll show you the cork. This was the cork class. No, the shape probably looks like that one, but if that was presented through a microscope, it looks like the skin, the scales of a skin, the one that I showed beforehand. So that's the piece of cork he observed. And then this was the monastery. So the shape was quadrangle, the same shape with what he saw in his microscope. So he was then enlightened of the term cell for what he observed in that microscope. Perhaps it's still also existing in the present time now. The cells of, the places to where our priests are housed is also the same as this one. Even our rooms are also shaped like this one, quadrangle. Okay, so this is the observation of Hooke. It was just simply drawn by him. Basically, he was a good architect. He even wanted to redesign London after the Great Fire, but his design was neglected by some people. Probably an issue again that we need to look back, or you need to look back, as I am going to give you your first performance task in this subject, which I will tell you later then. And then this was the microscope used by Hooke. Okay. Notice this area here. This is the flame. This is the flame that illuminates the specimen located here. This is it's like a diaphragm that illuminates the flame to focus to the specimen, whereas this is the major lens used by Hooke. And this was discovered or created by Zacharias Janssen. Okay. Next person after Robert Hooke is Anton van Leeuwenhoek. Okay, so he's a Dutch tradesman. He's also shall we say, lens maker. No, he's also a lens maker. He studied new approaches of creating lenses to observe a cloth, and eventually his job as observing the cloth through a lens led him to discover the moving objects in a certain pond, no? And he called them animalcules. So we have here swimming in a drop of pond water. And how did he observe it? It's just a simple lens class. Now, of course, after that observation grew the curiosity in him. So he then made his own microscope, which is quite weird. And I don't know how the microscope looks like. Maybe here we will have the microscope here. So this is the microscope of Leeuwenhoek. Up until now, I'm still confused of how this works, but perhaps this area here is the lens, and then at the back of this diagram comes this one. So where this is the lens, the ocular lens, and the eyepiece will be here. No, it's like simply focusing the image, the small image, to a small hole, so that that image will be clearly seen by the scientist. And perhaps this area here consists of the glass made by Leeuwenhoek himself. And then this is the coarse adjustment and the fine adjustment knob. The most common knobs that we then use to refocus the image closer or farther from the ocular eyepiece. I don't know if there are there's a museum in somewhere in the US or in England who showcases this kind of microscope. No? And then here are some of his discoveries, observations of Leeuwenhoek. No? We have here the sperm. This part here is the sperm. And then we have here the protists, a lot of protists. Here are leeches. I'm not sure if this is a living creature. It's like a bug or something. No? So these are his observations. These are termed animalcules. Again, these are composed of plants and animal cells. We call them animalcules. Then we go to the third person in the list. We have Matthias Schleiden. This is the picture of Matthias Schleiden. He is a German, he's a German botanist. Okay, fascinated with plants, so he used a compound microscope and studied further the said plant cell. And from his investigation comes the second tenet, that plants came from cells. No, plants came from cells, as well as the idea that animals came from cells, which was coined by Theodor Schwann. Here, discussed with his dear friend, a German scientist as well. But this person, Theodor Schwann, is not a botanist, but a zoologist. So together, they came up with the second tenet that all organisms came from cells. So this is Theodor Schwann's picture. And also a German scientist, so discovered or who is subject to the observation of animal cell. So the both of them, Schwann and Schleiden, published the first statement. But in our discussion in the previous week, this is the second tenet, no? But anyhow, you can jumble them for as long as you have all the three tenets of the cell theory. The both of them said that all living things, plants and animals, are made of cells and cell products. The term living things there is composed already of plants and animals. So we have here the controversial person, Rudolf Virchow. But if you go along with the history of Virchow, you'll come up with the name Robert Remak. I tell you. So based on this investigations, it stated that all cells comes from pre-existing cells, which is the second tenet of the cell theory. But in our discussion last week, this is the third tenet because the first tenet was cells is the basic unit of life. Okay. After Virchow completed his work, the cell theory was finally formulated in 1838. So this is the end of the whole cell theory by saying that all cells comes from pre-existing cell. And in the human being, we came from stem cell, and that stem cell originates from the single cell we came from, which is the fertilized egg. We'll talk about that fertilized egg when we proceed with the reproductive system. So this is now a recap of the cell theory's three major tenets. All organisms are made of cells. All cells comes from pre-existing cells, and the cell is the basic unit of life. Nabalila na siya, class. Perhaps the number 3 is the number 1 when we discussed it last week. And in your module as well, the number 3 is the number 1. Okay? And then the all cells comes from pre-existing cells, or number 2 there. All cells are produced by other living cells. That's the third tenet, which was mentioned by Rudolf Virchow. Okay, so we have here the contributors. Who are the contributors again? We have the names Robert Hooke, Anton van Leeuwenhoek, Matthias van Wandering, Theodor Schwann, and Rudolf the Red-Nosed Virchow. Okay, and then we have here some eye catchers of the following people, starting with Robert Hooke. So what did he came up? The name cell. And then how about Anton van Leeuwenhoek? Okay, let me ask someone. Para hindi naman ako ma-bore dito. Ako lang palagi nagsasalita, no? How about Tricia? What's the eye catcher of Anton van Leeuwenhoek? Aha.
Animal cell.
The animalcules. Okay, the term animalcules, the moving organelles of the cell. Okay, Robert Hooke only discovered the cell, man, but within that cell comes some organisms that is also part of the cell and are actually moving. Why is it that Robert Hooke did not came up with these animalcules, Raisa? How did he fail to see the animalcules?
Because of the microscope.
Probably, but
It's not moving.
if we go back to the life of Robert Hooke, the cork is a dead cell, dead plant cell. So of course, if it's a dead cell, nobody is moving there. Okay, if you notice the picture katong murag bark, dead cell mo to siya, dead plant cell to siya. Manang wala niya nakita. Next is Matthias van Wandering. Lexi, what is the eye catcher of Matthias van Wandering?
Yes. Examine plants and recognize the plant's part came from cells.
Okay, good. So plant cells came from cells, no? Plant cells are made of cells,
Yes,
or one is yeah. And then of course, if we go to Theodor Schwann, you just simply change the plant to Matthias and make it animal cells, no? Determine that animals came from the animals. Again, let me correct that one. That's the second tenet already, huh? Because the first tenet was then proposed by Robert Hooke that cell is the basic unit of life. And then the fifth person is Rudolf Virchow. Let me ask Nick, what's the eye catcher of Rudolf Virchow? Yes, Nick?
Cells are based on pre-existing cells.
Very good. So all cells comes from a pre-existing cell, which is the third tenet. And then at the end of this discussion with Virchow ends the cell theory. So the timeline of the cell theory is 1665 to 1838. Perhaps we will not consider the time when Zacharias Janssen created the microscope because the cell was not yet discovered there. The cell was discovered in 1665 and finished the discussion by 1838 with the phrase of Virchow, omnis cellula e cellula. Double check if it is in your module class. The omnis cellula e cellula. Okay. So it took 173 years for the cell theory to be formulated. Wow, kid. They are wow kids at IA. No? Okay, let me ask this to, it's like a review probably. Name the three major parts of the cell theory which is located in the previous, which is also there. You can just simply read it if you can find that in your module. Troy, name the three major parts of the cell theory, Troy. Troy, unmute, Troy, unmute. We can't hear you, Troy. Ayan, okay, go.
All organisms are made of cells.
Then,
Number two, all existing cells are produced by other living cells. And
and
number
then,
three, the cell is the most basic unit of life.
very good. So these are the three major parts of the cell theory. Thank you, Troy. Then, of course, without looking at the paper, I want to see her face. Perhaps this is for mastery purposes. Since taking the exam in the Edmodo, you won't look at your modules. Let me ask Chriselle, name the 5 contributors to the cell theory. Okay, so I did not hear you, but I read your lips. No? I was looking at your lips. You are right with
Sir.
that.
Here,
Okay,
sir.
okay.
Ano, Robert Hooke, Anton van Leeuwenhoek, Matthias Schleiden, Theodor Schwann, and Rodolph Vintrow.
Virchow. Virchow. Okay. Anyhow, these names under the exam in Edmodo are in the multiple choice. So you just simply highlight your answer there. From time to time, memorize the spelling. However, perhaps it's not needed though to memorize the spelling when the exam is an online exam. Or you'll never know. Maybe you really need it to memorize. I don't know if the audio is clear to this next video. So kindly unmute yourselves and then tell me, sir, wala nang video pa rin. Walang video pa rin. I know na. Oh my God. I'm so poor with technology. My goodness. So babalik siguro tayo mamaya sa video, no? Sige. Audio is good? Audio is there? Hoy, audio is there? Wala pa rin?
Wala, sir. No, sir.
Okay. In this video lies the explanation of the microscope, which is the last part of your module. So even if there is the absence of an audio, just simply follow the words because there are words reflected as the different pieces of the different parts of the microscope will be explained. Is it fine? Anyways, I'll send the link again to you guys to watch again this video. Okay, so watch this without any audio. Okay, so for a while, let me pause the video. The four lenses are the four objective lenses. In our school, we only have the three. Okay, so the 4 times is the scanning lens or the scanning objective lens. The 10 times is the low power objective. Okay, so the low power is usually where we started. When we look at the microscope, we always start with the low power. The low power is colored yellow. The 4 times is the scanning is the red, and then the blue comes the 40 times is the high power objective. In our school, we only have the three. Our microscope only has three lenses: the scanning, the low power, and the high power. But the 100 times, this is already the oil immersion. Was in there or was in your, no? There's an oil immersion, di ba? That is in a complex microscope wherein it magnifies the object 100 times. Okay, so again, the objectives multiplied by the eyepiece, it's the total magnification of the lens. The eyepiece is already going to magnify the object 10 times. So therefore, in the low power objective, the specimen will be magnified 100 times. 10 for the eyepiece, 10 for the low power equals 100. Okay? So that is it. So the scanning, low power, high power, and then the oil immersion. Proceed. The coarse is the one with the bigger diameter. The fine is the smaller one. The fine adjustment knob is located within the coarse adjustment knob. So this is the coarse. The smaller button in the center of the coarse is the fine adjustment knob. So these are the different, in your module, I think there's a condenser. Do you have a condenser in your module? I think there's a condenser. The condenser is located here together with the diaphragm. The condenser also allows the light to be dim or to be strong. The diaphragm widens or narrows the opening of the condenser. Okay, so it's within the diaphragm. And then it's not shown here, but there's a slide that will be placed in this area where the stage clips are located. The stage clips holds the slide. The beauty of this microscope class is that you know, you don't need to move the slides. Once the slide is placed in this area, you're going to use the coarse and the fine adjustment knob to raise or lower the stage. And then the fine adjustment knob focuses the iris for clear magnification. Whereas the movement of the stage going left, right, front, or back is controlled by the stage control. This one. This is the stage control. It's like the coarse and the fine. There are two nozzles here, this area and this area. This moves the stage left and right. Whereas this one, the bottom, moves the stage clips. Front, back, front, back. This one here. Of course, that would be, if you wish to do the review of the video again, I'll send the link, or you can search this in YouTube. The videos are all in YouTube. I think that's the last of the video. Okay. Questions? Questions, everyone? Or clarifications? Something that is in your module which was not discussed. In our first lesson is all, or even in the next couple of lessons, the thing that you need to understand in our subject is all but memorizing and understanding the different terminologies, because these relates to your human anatomy. These are all in you. No? Cells are in you, the different tissues are in you, and everything that we need to talk about in the next couple of days are all but what is inside your human anatomy. Okay, so I think someone already viewed, or how many viewed the 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 one that I placed in Edmodo. There are 7 who viewed the Edmodo page, and that's about your activity to be passed on September 5. September 5 is Friday of next week, I think, or Saturday of next week. Please, may I see the calendar for a while, huh? So what is in this September 5? September 5 is Saturday of next week. So this performance check will be due next week. What is in this performance task? Allow me to share screen the content of which, a while, PC1. Okay. Sir, if full volume ang man. Where is it? Here. Okay, this is what you're going to do, class. The instruction here is with a partner, okay? You're going to create an 8-page PowerPoint presentation of the cell theory. Your slides will be the following order and answer the listed. There's a guide here, class. Like the first slide is the title with your names. Second slide is what is spontaneous generation. Then the third slide is who is Anton van Leeuwenhoek. Much like the same with how I did in the first part, but this one talks about the person himself. When was Anton van Leeuwenhoek born? When did he die? And then perhaps what is the scientific tool? You can just recreate that the slide that I presented, and then continue with this part. Then Robert Hooke, Matthias been wondering, Rudolf Virchow, Robert, Theodor Schwann, and then the cell theory. It's just the same with what I did. There are websites that you can use for information about the said people involved. You can get the access of this PC. I posted this PC in your Edmodo page in biology. There are only 7 members in the Edmodo for biology. I'm not sure of the others if they weren't able to get the link that I circulated. For Nick Lucaliano, I'll just send you another username and password, huh? So choose your own partner for this performance task. Again, you can read again what are the contents of your performance task in the Edmodo page in biology. I already shared it there. Perhaps if you cannot view, I don't know, you can view, I think, because I made it public. So you are going to pair up. Perhaps the pair up goes with the closest person in your residence. I suggest Lexinet and Chrisilene will pair up. No? Don't pair up with Raisa, Chrisilene, and Lexinet will pair up with Alberto. No? So just pair up like Raisa with another person closer to your residence. Perhaps Alberto is in Dawis, Tricia, Boyabor, Troy is also in Dawis, and Nick is in Dawis. Maybe Nick and Troy can partner. Anyway, you need not to worry about the details because all are in the internet. It's just creating the slides, 8-slide PowerPoint presentation. Just follow the format I presented in the text of your performance check. Ben could pair up with, who's closer to Ben?
Batoy.
If Ben
Ba-
is
Bakla yun.
quite far, maybe Ben can work alone na lang. there are 11 of you, man. So, or maybe there's a group with a 3-man member.
Stop.
Stop ko?
Yung lags eh.
Wala, oy. Okay. Was I lag? Okay, so perhaps there are 11. I'm expecting 5 groups or 5 pair ups with 1 group to compose of 3 members. It's now the decision of the classmates to who will partner in this activity. I am not going to impose pairings as of the moment. We can simply use the GC to coordinate with the pair ups. But then I say, hi Jake! Hi Jake! Hi Jellica! Hindi mo nag-Jellica, eh. Oh, sorry, this is recorded pala. Okay, so any questions so far? Any questions so far? Unmute yourselves if you have a question. There's an activity that follows in your module. The checking of the activity will be Wednesday of next week, same time. Okay, and then there's already an exam which I did not schedule yet so that you cannot see it in Edmodo. I'll schedule it 1:30 on a Saturday, Friday. Your exam in the subject will be Friday of the same time. So it will be scheduled 1:30 to be done 2:30. If you cannot answer it within that time limit, your score or you'll get a score of a 0. Okay. Internet access, poor internet connection may be considered, but I do believe that the majority who are around in this session have good internet connection. Questions so far? None? Are we all good? So, of the 9 participants, only 8 attended the said meeting. So, the 3, I don't know where will they be. This is recorded. I hope that my grammar is fine so that I can finally post this in YouTube.